What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Quick Out Fantasy Football Show. John Impemba here with Andrew Cooper. It is week 16 of the NFL season, Coop. Hopefully, all of you have found your way through your fantasy football playoffs. Obviously, last week certainly had some ups and downs when it came to performances, some breakouts, some surprises. Who would have known that week 15 would have been the week of Trey Sermon and Zamir White's, taking over and winning some fantasy football matchups. Cool, my friend. How are we doing?
I'm doing good, man. And it really, that's what it's all about. It's what this show has been all about all year is like, you got to avoid the landmines. Obviously, the big games are awesome when they do come. And what we're trying to do is look for guys we trust. With Zamir White, we were able to trust him, right? To some degree, we knew he was going to be the starter, right? Some of these guys stepping in. There's a lot of guys where we say, hey, we don't trust this guy. And sometimes those guys will give you a 0. And a lot of times it is the guys that, you trust, or even sometimes are boring, that will come out and randomly have the big games too. You know what I mean? Like, it is the McCaffreys, it's the Laportas, it's those guys that have the 3 touchdown games. So that's where we're at. We're here to separate the 2 touchdown games from Jordan Addison, which we can probably trust, from the 2 touchdown games from Trey Tucker. And that's what we're going to do today is we're going to go through the matchups. Thank you guys for taking your lunch breaks early. All you guys that came in and everyone hanging out. We are 1 hour early today. We just got to get it done. Get out there and get it happening.
Let's get into some of the top stories from last week and heading into this week. Obviously, injuries once again sort of rearing their head here. CJ Stroud remains in concussion protocol. Seems unlikely to be cleared in time for this week's matchup. So, do they go back to the Case Keenum experience? Do they give? Now we've been blanking on what the other option there was. And
Davis Mills. Yeah.
They go to Davis Mills. The situation there in Houston, obviously less than ideal for fantasy managers who are probably riding out Stroud and Tank Dell and Nico Collins, this whole season, and now they're out.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because this one, the spread didn't move much. It's like, that Vegas, they've got people, behind the scenes creeping under bleachers and stuff. They seem to always know what's going on before we do, So it seems like maybe they already knew or had a good idea that he wasn't going to be able to clear in time because not a lot of movement on the lines. So we're just going to, obviously, if Stroud were, if they're expecting him to play and this was a surprise, you would see a big movement because that is a player that's obviously worth, what, 2, 3, 4 points?
Yeah, usually quarterbacks are a couple of points. This line opened at -2. It's now actually this line opened at Houston -2. So I think it did move here, Coop. Actually opened at Houston -2. It's now Houston +2.5. So the Stroud news there moving the line 4 points.
Remember that game a couple of years ago where
Dak Prescott.
No. I was going to say the one you and me were talking about where Baker Mayfield was out and the line didn't move at all.
Oh, yeah, the line didn't move at all. Yeah. The Dak Prescott one last year was huge. The line moved like 6 points.
6 points.
When it was expected he might end up not playing there. So this one's already moved for Cleveland, going into Houston in this one. But obviously, Cleveland's tough defense in Case Keenum there. The line is moving quickly in the Browns' favor here. Jamar Chase suffered a shoulder injury, already ruled out for this week. So those of you who had Jamar Chase for your fantasy football playoffs last week, going to be scrambling for some replacements. Obviously, T. Higgins is going to be rostered in a lot of spots already. Maybe Tyler Boyd was available on your waiver wire and you were able to snag him up there. Is there anybody else in Cincinnati, Coop, that you'd look to grab to replace a Jamar Chase?
So the problem is, if T. Higgins were out, I would actually say Trenton Irwin, not in redraft or anything like that, but Trenton Irwin plays that big guy role. The problem with Chase being out is we haven't seen it yet, and Trenton Irwin didn't get the full job last time. Andre Yoshiva also played a decent amount at flanker. They kind of mixed and matched, so I don't really trust anybody else. And I got to say, man, talk about the first 2 picks in fantasy drafts, in a lot of cases, people were leaning into PPR. So they were taking Justin Jefferson, taking Jamar Chase. A lot of the Justin Jefferson teams didn't make the playoffs. And now a lot of the Jamar Chase teams are probably eliminated or they're going up without Jamar Chase. So I don't know if there really was a right answer between those two.
Yeah, no kidding. Trevor Lawrence is in concussion protocol. There is some expectation that he may be able to work his way through, but at least of right now, he is still going through the league procedures here. Could see CJ Beathard making a start this week for the Jacksonville Jaguars in their matchup here against the now I'm blanking on who they're facing. Who the Jags playing this week?
Jags are
As
playing the. I was just looking at it too.
Tampa Bay. So Jacksonville's got
Bay.
Tampa Bay. So we should see CJ Beathard potentially facing Tampa Bay this week if Trevor Lawrence is not able to get through.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're going to get to that game when we get there, but typically what you see with these guys, and the thing is, CJ Beathard, we've seen him play a few games. He's a NFL caliber quarterback. Like, he's not going to come in and just be a superstar most likely, but just like Nick Mullins, we weren't actually really downgrading those guys a ton from Joshua Dobbs to Nick Mullins, because we've seen Nick Mullins play games. I've seen him throw a number of touchdown passes. Same thing with like Davis Mills and these guys, and Joe Flacco to some degree. Like, it's not like we're going out. Like, if the Lions were to lose Jared Goff and start Hendon Hooker, that's when we say, oh boy, because we've never seen this guy play. He's been coming off a torn ACL. That's a nightmare. Remember Malik Willis when he started? Nightmare.
He could not throw a football. Yeah,
couldn't even throw it. Clayton Tune was pretty rough going up against the Browns.
Yeah.
But some of these proven commodities, I don't move guys very far. What I do a lot of times is I lean into the lower ADOT players, because you're probably not going to see this guy move around a ton.
Yeah.
You're going to see a simplified playbook to some degree. So it does hurt the creative players downfield a little more than it does the quick hitters underneath. A lot of first read stuff. So I don't know. Evan Engram might be all right. We have to discount him a little bit because of the unknown, but if you don't have better options.
Jones may not play this week. We obviously know Christian Kirk's out as well, so it just kind of bumps everybody up for
exactly. Yeah, might be all right.
That one. And then with the Chiefs here, their running back situation again gets a little bit more messy, or maybe not. Maybe it adds more clarity. Isaiah Pacheco is expected to return this week after whatever shoulder surgery procedure that he had. Seemingly he'll be ready to rejoin the team based off early reports. So, Clyde Edwards-Helaire last week was pretty good. Jerick McKinnon's been finding the end zone, but they're about to add Pacheco back into that mix.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, it definitely takes CH and McKinnon off the table for me, because we know who the starter's been all year.
Mm-hmm.
Pacheco, you got to decide whether or not to start him. But I have to say, when I look around this running back landscape, it's kind of hard not to rank Isaiah Pacheco at least within the top 15, right? Like top 20 for sure. And in most leagues, unless you got really lucky, your team's a wagon or it's a dynasty or something, anybody ranked within the top 24, you've got 2 running back slots and a flex spot, you're probably starting this guy. So we'll get to that matchup when we get there.
We will. Before we jump into our game-by-game breakdowns, it's time to give out our favorite sleeper fantasy plays of the week here. If you haven't already downloaded the Sleeper app, I'm sure many of you got your fantasy football leagues over there anyways. Sleeper has the pick'em games now as well. You can scan that QR code, use promo code VAULT3, or go to fantasystorm.com/sleeper and use promo code VAULT3 when you sign up. You got a $100 deposit match right now. Sleeper has a $1 million Santa giveaway going on right now. Each $5 or more entry gives you a ticket into their drawing where they're going to be giving away cold, hard cash. This is withdrawable funds. It's not game credits that you have to play through. They'll put that money right into your account and you can withdraw it right away. But the only way you earn those tickets is to play and enter. So make sure you go download the Sleeper app, scan that QR code again, and take advantage of today's offer that they got going on there. Coop, we're looking at the Thursday night football game here. Their pick on sale is Cooper Kupp over half a receiving yard. So if you haven't already taken advantage of their promo picks, you can certainly plug that one in as part of your 2-pick play. I liked the Cooper Kupp reception yards anyways, going over 72.5 receiving yards. That was at 1.75x. The Saints pass defense obviously is taking a hit with Lattimore out of their lineup. And we've seen a lot from this passing offense here for the Rams in recent weeks. But since Cooper Kupp is also their pick on sale and you can't always double up, I'm going to go with Stafford over 247.5 passing yards as well. He's gone over that total now in 3 straight weeks here. Like him at home, just been throwing the football a ton. And if this game is at all competitive, then we're going to see a little bit of a back and forth action here. It's just a 4.5-point spread with a 46.5 game total that's on the rise. This game opened at a 44 total. So thinking Stafford's going to be throwing the ball a lot. I'm liking the connection Stafford to Kupp. So if you haven't already used the promo pick there, you can use the Cooper Kupp over half receiving yards. Otherwise, I like Kupp over 72.5 receiving yards, and I like the Stafford over 247.5 passing this week.
Yeah, I like to make multiple, honestly. The more I've gotten used to using this, and it's actually so convenient because it's right where a lot of my leagues are anyway. It's right where the Bourbon Bowl league is that Howard Bender's team, his terrible team, beat my team somehow this week.
Oh man.
So it's right in there, so I can look at that every time I go in there to make my picks. I still have teams alive on Sleeper, but yeah. So I like to make a couple. So I'll make one with some of the bonus ones, like the Cooper Cup one. There's a cap on how much you can put on it. So what I like to do is I like to do the promo one, and then I'll do another one where I try and juice up the multiplier, like yours, for instance, Cooper Cup 1.75x. You can combine those all the way up to 100x. So I've done a few of those, not all the way to 100, but I've gotten up there where, the payouts are crazy if everything hits. And then I like to do a couple other ones that are a lot more realistic, a lot more grounded in reality. And the beauty of this site versus some of the other ones is that you can go under on certain things that other sites never let you do. Like a lot of, some of the sites with touchdowns, you can only pick that they're going to score. Whereas on this one, they'll give you 0.5 touchdowns and you can pick that they're not going to score. So I look at one this week, Jimmy Graham, anytime TD. It's you can pick for him to have one or not have one. If you pick for him to score one, it's 3x, but you can just pick for him to not score a touchdown at 1x. I mean, I know he's scored 4 touchdowns, but he only has 6 receptions on the year. Like, what are the odds of this guy actually scoring, just getting one target every week and scoring a touchdown?
Zone, right? Like that's
I know, but they also have Taysom Hill in the red zone. They also have Alvin Kamara, right? Chris Olave will hopefully be back. Juwan Johnson's not a schlub. I just don't foresee this guy coming out and just. And the cat's out of the bag now. If you see Jimmy Graham on the cover him, right? Like, what they're doing. So I'm actually taking the most boring pick possible and saying Jimmy Graham anytime TD less at 1x and just throwing that in and combining it, and it feels like a free square to me. Just okay, I mean, Jimmy Graham's not going to score.
That's like the lowest multiplier they offer on Sleeper, so it tells you what the odds are for him to actually score. But no, right? Like we've said this for 15 years now, right? Jimmy Graham's not out there to block. If he's out there in the red zone, he's going to go out there and try to catch a pass.
Cover him, okay? Enough of this business. It's bothering me. I got too much Alvin Kamara, right? Although it is funny, I usually root against Taysom Hill, so it is funny when anyone else scores besides Taysom Hill. But this week I'll root against Jimmy Graham.
So everybody, go ahead, scan that QR code, download Sleeper app if you haven't already, and if you have, just click that little money symbol in the middle of the screen. Make sure you use promo code Vault3 when you sign up to get that $100 deposit match and take advantage of this Week 16 offer. The $1 Million Santa giveaway obviously is coming to a close soon. The Christmas is right around the corner, so get your tickets in now. Give yourself an opportunity to win some real money that you can withdraw and add for some gifts maybe for the post-holiday season there.
Give yourself the gift of being right about football and winning a little bit of money, right?
Exactly.
Let's hit the chat real quick. Just some questions there. I love what Adam did in the chat here. So, because it really helps us when you do put in the questions on the games we're talking about. We'll just hit these questions real quick, but appreciate you saying when we get to the Chargers, let us know about Easton Stick. That really does help us out. We do go through every single game. We do our best to answer as many questions as possible, but let's hit the ones that came in early, like Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon's first one here, Ferguson or Waller. That's a you question here, Coop. Waller came back last week, made some plays.
Yeah, it's all about your own level of risk averse or not. Jake Ferguson's gotten 8 targets in back-to-back-to-back games. So really, if you want to play it safe, go with Ferguson. If you look at your matchup and feel like you need the extra juice, though, Darren Waller came back on only a 40% snap share, got 6 targets. And his matchups this week and next week are Eagles and Rams. What I would probably do, Brandon, is start Ferguson this week. And then if Waller goes out and plays like 80-90% of the snaps and gets like 8, 9, 10 targets, then maybe you start Waller against the Rams, which is one of the best matchups for a tight end.
Agreed. Best time to have Waller in your championship week there against the Rams.
For sure.
Brandon here again, follow-up question. Is this a longer? So it's Ferguson or Waller? Okay, no, second question.
Yeah, second question.
Kamara, Swift, Jones, Robinson, sit 2 here.
I mean,
I like Aaron Jones a lot this week. AJ Dillon may not play again with that broken hand. Great spot for him against in the Packers matchup this week. Sit 2 though.
I'm probably going to sit Brian Robinson and Swift.
Robinson for 1. Yeah, Swift is the other one. Swift against the Giants this week, right?
That's probably what I do. I'm starting Kamara and Mixon.
Okay, that's fine by me. Again, they're all very close. Great drafting, Brendan. Got a lot of depth there.
Good squad.
Britt saying hi. What's up, Britt? How
What's
we
up, Brett?
doing today? I think are you and Coop on Alarm Fantasy
She's
Football
filling
today?
in for Alarm Fantasy Football. We're doing a little bit of holiday party today. See
Love it.
which NFL players as holiday characters will attend our party. We're gonna have a little fun today.
If you haven't checked out Britt's therapy session show from the Brits Fantasy Blitz, go check that out on Monday. The recap is on YouTube. That was a fun show to watch there.
Fun.
So
Yeah.
check that out. Smokey the Cat's been in Cancun. Oh, nice.
I wonder
nice
where you were, Smokey. What's up, dude?
Nice to enjoy the nice weather there. Adam wants to know, obviously, Easton stick to support at least 15 PPR points for Keenan Allen if he plays. I mean, they got all that garbage time last week. That's where like Quinn Johnson and they had a big play to Joshua Palmer. I don't know if I would do that. The problem is you have Lockett, Brown, and Curtis Samuel. Now, I don't really love Noah Brown against Cleveland. Lockett's not bad. He's been getting the good target share, but hasn't popped. This is a good matchup, I think, for Seattle this week. And then Curtis Samuel, a lot of people I know are big fans of him in the Washington matchup this week for the Commanders. I guess we don't know who the quarterback's going to be quite yet, if they've officially made the change to Jacoby Brissett, or if they're going to go back to Sam Howell here. But what are your thoughts?
I did read a quote from Ron Rivera where he basically said, you know, and coaches have done this at other positions. They rarely do it at quarterback, but he basically said he was like, the game was out of hand and he was getting beat up out there. And we just decided to preserve him a little bit and just take him out. So that tells me he's still the starter. And they were just like, look, there's no sense getting this guy hurt against the pass rush and stuff. So they took him out. He's going to be the guy again. The one that you have to wait on. The thing is, if CJ Stroud is out, which we think he's going to be, I'm not starting Noah Brown.
No.
So
I think it's Lockett against the Titans is where I would go, because Washington's got the Jets. I know the slot receiver versus the Jets has been the way to sort of attack them, but Washington in New York this weekend doesn't seem all that fun.
Agreed.
So might have to be Lockett, or you just like play your studs and just hope Keenan Allen gets 16 targets against Buffalo. Like, I don't know. Like, it's doesn't feel great though having Easton Stick there at the quarterback position. I'll tell you that much. Njoku or Waller for Recon, a little tougher question here.
That's easy.
Been a monster.
And Njoku's just you can't go away from Njoku right now, especially he's going against the Texans, which has been an easy matchup. He got 14 targets last week, right?
Yeah.
So like,
no, dude, he's been I texted you and Howard Bender is like, who would have thought David Njoku is going to end the year potentially with like 900 yards receiving? You know, the way the season.
I don't know. There was an article on Fantasy Alarm. I mean, if you just Google David Njoku league winner, see what comes up. See if anybody wrote an article like that, maybe like a couple weeks ago. In fact,
right. Any quarterback not named Deshaun Watson has done nothing but throw the ball to David Njoku, and Joe Flacco's throwing more than anybody in Cleveland has thrown this season per game. So got to love those pass attempts going his way. He's got a follow-up question here. Josh Allen, Mixon, Swift. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jefferson, Waddle, and Njoku. Do you bring Jonathan Taylor off the bench to play someone in that lineup instead? So basically play Jonathan Taylor over Mixon, Swift, I guess.
I mean, so that's the thing. If Taylor is good to go, it's a thumb injury, and I think it shouldn't have. Like, it's not like he hasn't been able to get on the treadmill.
No,
I might go with him over.
Colts got the Falcons this week. Mixon has the Steelers and Swift has the Giants.
Yeah, I might start him over Swift, but maybe not even. I don't know. That's close.
Yeah, I mean, the Taylor should get a lot of the work. Obviously, Moss is doing it there now, so if he's active, I'm fine going over Swift there. Mixon, obviously, the numbers haven't been great on a per carry basis, but he is getting some touchdown potential. And now no Jamar Chase could lean on him a little bit more here, so I don't mind that. Love or Tua is a question. I'm gonna go Tua this week.
Twitch glasses.
Home against the Cowboys to me is where I'm gonna go for Tua this week.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully Tyreek plays.
Last lineup, playing Geno, Bijan, Cook, CD Godwin. Do I stand a chance against him? Yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, I'm not sold on Keenan or Godwin. I mean, Bijan Robinson had like 7 carries last week. Geno Smith might not play.
Ferguson's boring. He's good, but he's boring.
Yeah, I think you're fine. I would say you have more than a chance with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, and Jalen Waddle. I think you're more than okay there. Would you trust Aaron Jones in your playoffs? Also play Howell, Heineke, or Chandler in the Superflex. Yes, I'm trusting Aaron Jones this week. And I would go. I mean, Chandler's been great. It's just such a bad matchup for him. What are your thoughts? I don't like Howell
I'm
against the
I'm
Jets.
I'm going. Well, yeah. I mean, you're not going to start Heineke though. So I mean, to me, if Alexander Madison is out, maybe you go Chandler. If Madison's in, you got to start a quarterback, and I'm probably still just going to start. I'm probably still just going to start Howell.
Okay. Yeah, it's just in New York. It's such a bad spot for that team.
Gross. Yeah.
So let's get into our game by game breakdown. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
come to a different determination as we think more through that spot here. Thursday night matchup is the Saints versus the Rams. Rams are given 4-46 game total here. I like the Rams offense right now. Stafford's been great, even if not even efficient at times. He's just throwing a ton, throwing for touchdowns was his rate. It's really bringing a lot of value to those fantasy managers that held on to Puka and Cup and Kyron and all that crew here. So they're all pretty strong. But what are your thoughts on the Saints side of the ball?
Yeah. I mean, just real quick on the Rams, we talked about it in the sleeper segment with Cup versus Nakua. Cup plays more slot. Nakua plays outside, and Alante Taylor's in the slot there. So we do love Cup. If you're somebody that had both Cup and Nakua, which is a lot of people, because naturally you pick, people that had Cup are more inclined to pick up Puka Nakua. I would start Cooper Cup if you had to pick between the two. On the Saints side, I'm just so glad that Taysom Hill only had 5 yards, and everyone is all the Taysom Hill people just go away. And I still had people this week, John, that had a bye week last week, and they're like Taysom Hill, and I'm like, what do you think, dude? What do you think I'm going to scared of that? Like, he's dealing with a foot injury. He just had 5 yards total, 5 yards. Like, you can't trust that guy. Chris Olave, start him if he plays. The other guys, it's a little bit dicey. I was going through, and they didn't really let anybody play the whole game. So we thought that it would be like, okay, everybody's hurt, so Chris Olave will play the whole game. They still kind of viewed him as a field stretcher, right? So you had 62 offensive snaps. The leader in snaps among the pass catchers was Lynn Bowden with 37. So almost half the game. Of 32 routes, Lynn Bowden ran 15. So Rashid Shaheed is the guy I do trust the most, but they really don't trust that guy's blocking at all. So he's always going to miss some snaps. If you have to start anybody at Shaheed, I don't trust A.T. Perry, Juwan Johnson, any of those other guys. It's basically Kamara, Shaheed, that's it.
Yep, I agree with you. This is a good matchup for tight ends, though. So you don't think that Juwan Johnson might find his way into some increased production this week?
Again, 32 routes available. He only ran 16 because what they're doing is they're mixing and matching based on. So Foster Moreau is now the de facto starting tight end, right? He played 45 snaps. Juwan only played 27, but Foster Moreau is such a clunky blocking tight end. He only ran 13 routes. So it's like 13 routes for Juwan, 13 routes for Foster, 14 for Juwan. Even if you could combine them into one player, I'm not sure I'd start him. So I can't trust him, man. I can't trust him.
Let's move on to the Saturday slates here again. This is a weird week where we have a Thursday, Saturday. We have 3 Mondays on Christmas Day. So they really broke up the slates this week.
I wish we had 3 Saturday games again. 3 Saturday is just right. I think
wasn't it right? Like it really made the day go by quick, right?
It was great, especially when the first one went to overtime too.
Yeah,
we kind of cruised right in there, man. I like that.
Bengals -2 at the Steelers. Total game here 37. Again, no Jamar Chase here for Cincinnati. Browning's still looking pretty good. What's your overall thoughts on Cincy in this matchup?
Yeah, so I mean, like you just got to boost up Higgins a little bit. You boost up Boyd. I'm not touching any of the other wide receivers. Maybe in DFS you can start Trenton Irwin if you want to do a little dart throw. My question is, Tanner Hudson really has only run like 10 routes a game. With Chase out, does he get a little bit of boost here to be viable? I mean, it's a great matchup, right? Like we're talking sorry, it's not actually a great matchup. Sorry. I was looking at the Bengals side as a great matchup. The Steelers are not a good matchup. So, but I mean, if this guy gets a little more usage, he could easily be viable because he's, when he runs like 10, 13, 14 routes, he gets 5, 6 targets. Last week, he ran almost 20. He ran 23 routes. So maybe Tanner Hudson's on the menu. Definitely in DFS for a Saturday slate. But
he's just a guy that gets targets when he's on the field, man.
Like he's on the field to get targets. So I think if you're doing a Saturday only slate where you're just picking from those 2 games and you're not going to spend up on Dalton Kincaid, I think Tanner Hudson's absolutely a pretty viable play.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there as well. Here, Steelers side, they're going with Mason Rudolph. We know what that looks like. The Bengals defense is not good though, so I'm not really like loving Mason Rudolph as a quarterback option. I just don't know what to make of like the skill position players because I feel like you could get some production out of Deontay Johnson or these running backs here this week, just given how poor Cincinnati's defense has been.
Right. And I'll tell you what, with Mason Rudolph here, do you ever watch Arrested Development, John?
Yeah.
You know when he looks in the fridge and the bag says dead bird inside and he opens it and he goes, I don't know what I expected. Like that's what it's going to be like if you start guys on the Steelers this week. If,
Right.
it goes the way we think it's going to, because it's not like they can just bring in Kenny Pickett.
Right.
If Mason Rudolph stinks, you're going to get Mitch Trubisky back in there where it's either bad. Basically, they're taking a shot on it being somehow slightly better, but it could be even worse. And
It's
if
what the
it
Patriots do with Mac Jones and
right,
Bailey Zappi.
if it's bad, they have to go back to bad.
Yeah.
Right? So, it's just kinda rough, man, like, so and the really tough part is that last time Pat Freiermuth played this team with Kenny Pickett, he had 9 catches for 120. So, the upside is there, it's
Yeah.
possible, maybe a DFS play, but I'm not doing it in my playoff matchups, I can't.
I agree. How you doing the running backs? Warren, Najee?
I think, you gotta go with Warren just because he got virtually every pass snap last week, virtually every one, which led to him having just more overall plays. So if I have to pick between the two, I'm picking Warren for sure.
Okay. Moving down into that next game here on the slate, we have the Bills giving 11. They're on the road here against the Los Angeles Chargers with a 44 game total. Again, obviously the Chargers offense is in a bit of a disarray. Easton Stick at quarterback. That defense just got blown out. But do you trust the fired coach narrative that Howard Bender continues to preach year after year? Do the Chargers stand a chance of covering the spread here?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with the fired coaches, I mean, I've gone back and forth on some of them because, like, the fired coach narrative, of course, is that they come out, cover the spread because a lot of times when the teams fire the coach, they do. But this is not a good matchup, man. So I don't know. I would bet on the Bills to win pretty handedly here.
Right.
And
They
the
just
other
got 65 points to the Raiders.
Right. The
So
other the other narrative for fired coaches is that a lot of times what they do is they lean into the veterans and the star players, right? Because you bring in the interim coach and he doesn't want to rock the boat, obviously. So you look at the Raiders and when they fired the coach, it was just Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, and it was they got a ton of targets, right? And
mhm.
the interim coach even said, "I know who the good players are. That's why he got so many targets." The problem here is that Kellen Moore reportedly has been the one that has been calling for the split kind of for Austin Eckler. So I don't know if we see that change. But I think that if Keenan Allen were to play, then they probably would lean on him. But I'm just trying to avoid all that. I'm just hoping that the Chargers can keep it competitive enough that so that Diggs and Kincaid can have a bounce back game. Because if you look at last week's game versus the Cowboys didn't compete. They didn't
Right.
compete at all. So the Bills only threw 15 times. At least it won't be cold and wet in Los Angeles. But I mean, there is the possibility that it's just another game where James Cook puts the team on his back. Right.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. You can certainly run on the Chargers. We've seen that highlight over and over again that I sent you of the Lions offensive line, literally moving the entire Chargers
Right.
defense like 2 yards back immediately as soon as the ball was snapped on the David Montgomery touchdown run. And that's just how bad their defensive core is there on run defense. So I can see a lot of James Cook this week. Definitely going to be your highest rostered play, I think, on this 2-game slate for Saturday. Moving on over to Sunday, we have the Colts versus the Falcons. Quarterback change here in Atlanta. Falcons are 1.5 point home favorites. I don't know what to think about that right now. But Taylor Heineke is your new quarterback. The Colts here potentially without Michael Pittman. Jonathan Taylor might return. What's your overall thoughts here on this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, without Michael Pittman, we're going to probably see DJ Montgomery play that split end role, and maybe see some extra 2 tight end sets. DJ Montgomery could be a DFS play, but I just think we probably see a little more Alec Pierce, a little more Josh Downs than usual in terms of targets. So move those guys up just a little bit again, but Pittman was the guy that we could truly trust. Like Alec Pierce isn't all of a sudden going to be a star just because Michael Pittman's out. So just be careful with all those players, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. On the Falcons side, do we think, we saw the Arthur Smith press conference, looked a little depressed to Taylor Heineke instill new life into this offense?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. For DFS purposes, I'm definitely going to have Kyle Pitts in the tight end article this week because that's the kind of high risk, high reward play we want to make. Like from the very beginning of the year, I said, here's the hope. We're hoping that Kyle Pitts' knee gets right after having off-season surgery, MCL surgery, and we're hoping that maybe Taylor Heineke takes over and we get better quarterback play down the stretch. Now, unfortunately, it's happening in the middle of fantasy playoffs, but before this last washout game, the 2 games before, Kyle Pitts was running 90% of the routes, right? And maybe Taylor Heineke is better than Desmond Ritter because when Taylor Heineke played earlier, Pitts was playing like half the game. So I am interested in Pitts, London, Bijan. especially in DFS, in your real fantasy leagues, you have to ask yourself, can I afford to, like, will I be able to live with myself if I lose because I started Falcons with Taylor Heineke quarterback?
Right.
If you can deal with the downside, then there's a lot of upside to be had there. If not, then maybe you would want to start a safe guy. That's why we go through and say, like, okay, you know, ask yourself. We know the deal with Kyle Pitts where his floor is low but his ceiling is high. We know the deal with Dallas Goedert where his floor is high but his ceiling is like medium, right? So you got to
Mhm.
ask yourself what kind of person you are, what kind of team you have, what kind of team you need to win, right? And
Right.
then that's how you decide between those two guys, because it's a just ranking them back to back without considering those things is an impossible task.
Agreed. Packers given 4.5 at Carolina, 36.5 game total here. Packers wide receivers are beat up a little bit, which is one of the reasons I like Aaron Jones. Played 48% of the offensive snaps in his return from injury, and A.J. Dillon is still potentially out of this one. A great spot to run the football, and assuming he comes out of this week of practice healthy, I think we'd see increased snap count from Aaron Jones in this game. I think it's really going to be a battle of the two running backs. Another 20 plus carry week from Chuba Hubbard, third straight week for him here. I think you just see Jones and Hubbard take over the spot.
Yeah. So Adam Brunchen in the chat. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Adam. If it's Brunchen or Brunchen. But Adam, he says, so you're surprised to see where I'm ranking Aaron Jones, especially against Carolina. I know he commented in Coop's Corner. I'm going to check that out on Discord after the show. But I do think I might have Aaron Jones a little too low. I have him at running back 23 right now, John. The reason I have him a little bit
Yeah.
low is that he picked up all the run work, which is good for this matchup, but he gave up half the pass work to Patrick Taylor. They didn't give him the full workload here, but I think I probably do need to move him up. So
Yeah.
I'm looking around. Would you start him over Ty Chandler?
This week, yeah, Chandler's got a really, really bad matchup.
And Kenneth Walker also has a bad matchup, so probably ahead of Kenneth Walker. Derrick Henry.
I mean, it's a great matchup for Henry, but the man had 9 yards on 15 carries last week.
Right,
So
that's what I'm saying. So I think in PPR, at least I'm going to move him ahead of Henry. Chuba Hubbard in this game as well.
no, I think I keep Chuba ahead of him.
Yeah. Josh Jacobs if he plays against the Chiefs.
I would keep Jacobs ahead of him.
And then I've got Devon Achane and David Montgomery ahead.
I think I'd play him over Montgomery. Echan is tough because he also splits a workload.
Right.
But if the Dolphins just go on the ground here, that he could maybe find some success. I might put Jones over Echan just because, again, I think if Dillon's out, and we talked about this last week, when Jones has first come back from his injury games, he's always been limited a bit here. If now we're in game 2 and he comes through without any limitations and there's no Dillon again, I would anticipate him to see a larger snap share this week and a really good spot. So I think I would have him over Achane and Montgomery there.
He played 29 snaps out of 60, and Patrick Taylor played 26.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think that was my hesitancy there, was looking at that and seeing, oh, you know what? They did split it pretty evenly. Patrick Taylor got a lot more pass downs. Patrick Taylor played 24 pass downs. Aaron Jones played 15, but the routes run weren't far off. So, yeah, maybe I probably will move.
I think Jones probably should move up. Again, Jones is the cover of the watch list this week. I think he's in a great spot.
We'll move him up. We'll get him moved up. I'll do that today. I'll do that right now.
Browns, Texans, the next game here. Texans are given 2.5. It's a 42.5 game total. As we've already talked about, the Texans are getting 2.5 in this one. It was that they were giving the 2.5, but now since the Strat news has come out, that line has since moved drastically in the other direction here. So no Stroud this week is the expectation. Nico Collins is still hurt. Browns defense dealing with its own run of injuries here, but I still think they're good enough in this matchup against Case Keenum. And we touched upon David Njoku already a little bit, but Amari Cooper had the big touchdown catch last week as well.
Yeah, I mean, Njoku's been so dialed in, it's hard to go away from him. I know it still feels a little dicey with him. It always does, but this isn't a team. The thing with Njoku, when he has the bad games, it's typically because the other team has one or more superstar pass rushers, right? And I think Will Anderson, we think he's going to be a good player, but I think he's a little banged up right now, if not potentially in line to miss this game. So, I mean, I really don't think there's any situation where they ask Njoku to stay in for a good chunk of the game like they have in the past. So I think Njoku's going to be fine. I'm willing to start Amari Cooper. I'm willing to start Elijah Moore in the right spots. Cedric Tillman is more of just like a DFS dart throw because he's the field stretcher, right? He plays a lot of snaps, but he needs to hit the home run ball. I mean, it's not a bad DFS play, but I don't mind starting a lot of Browns. I'll start Jerome Ford, feeling
The
pretty
running
good.
game was not good last week. Both Ford and Hunt really struggled in that matchup against Chicago. Chicago's obviously had a tougher run defense, but Houston just held the Titans in check running the football. So I agree with you. If you have Ford, you're going to play him this week unless you have other options. But I don't love the running game as nearly as much as I did previously. Now that Flacco's throwing 45 times a game.
Right.
So.
And another big thing that you have to keep an eye on is that Joel Bitonio left the game last week. We're talking Pro Bowl, All Pro caliber lineman for the Browns. He left the game. If he says he's feeling better, but if he's not going to play this week, then that's a huge hit to the run game. And I'll definitely be moving Jerome Ford down.
Yep. Anybody on the Texan side after Keenum? Like, do you like any of the receivers?
No.
Running
Now with
back
the matchup change, I guess you can go with Noah Brown where you must, because he's, especially if the same quarterback's going to play, because last week he got 11 targets. Dalton Schultz, I do not love in this matchup. Devin Singletary against the Browns, kind of dicey, although Singletary got like all the work. Damian Pierce is just phased out. I don't know what is going on with him, man, but he doesn't even play. He doesn't play. It's not even that he's playing and he's playing bad. And it's not even like he's playing as much as Tyler Algier. I'm talking Devin Singletary played 58 snaps last week and Damian Pierce played 4.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just not involved, not one bit. So what are you going to do? It's a hot hand Shanahan's coaching tree, and they're going with the hot hand. That's Singletary.
Seahawks given 2.5 at Tennessee this week. Game total 41.5 here. Drew Lock obviously led the game-winning drive against Phillies. Kind of looked okay at times for them, connecting with JSN. You have Geno Smith potentially available to return. We know we can throw all over to the Titans defense here, and they have 3 very good wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to start all of Metcalf, Lockett, and JSN now. They're using a ton of 3 wide receiver sets. They're really not throwing the ball to Noah Fant and Colby Parkinson and Will Disley in any capacity that would matter. Like, they give them each a kind of, little whatever target every once in a while, but they're not really choking up any targets. And the running backs aren't really that much either. So the pass attack really does go through 3 guys, which, and to put honestly, JSN, he's not Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd has been a very good player, very good career, but at this stage, he's not really breaking off big chunk plays. He's not scoring, 30-yard game winners with, 30 seconds left or whatever, like JSN. So I put JSN in a different tier than I do. Like, you can take some of these slot guys. I know the upside isn't crazy high because we know how it works with the slot, but you can take guys like Jaden Reed and JSN and put them right behind all the full-time guys, ahead of the other, like the part-time guys that we know are just mediocre. And you can honestly put them ahead of some of the full-time guys, like, Alec Pierce. So I don't mind starting JSN. And Drew Lock, great story, but they've already kind of said that Geno Smith is a starter. So if Geno Smith is healthy, it's going to go back to him. I really enjoyed watching Drew Lock and hearing him after the game talk about what that game meant to him. I love that stuff, man. It reminds you that these are human beings and that football is awesome.
Well, I mean, Drew Lock almost with a similar story to Geno, right? Like, the league sort of just like ruled him out, didn't consider him to be a viable play. All of a sudden, Geno wins the starting job last year, and now look where he is today. It could be a trajectory that Drew Lock eventually finds himself following there as well. Titans offense, anybody for you? I mean, again, Derrick Henry looked terrible last week. Hopkins had a tough day. Is there anyone in particular you're keying in on here? If Jamal Adams is out, does Chicago become more appealing to you?
These teams scare me because once you get eliminated from playoffs, we've seen it from time to time where they'll go out and play live tryouts and say, hey, you know what? Who's going to be part of this team moving forward, right? And they look and say, okay, let's see. Kyle Phillips, what do you got? Nick Westbrook-Akine, Josh Wiley versus Chigakonkwo. Maybe they let Malik Willis play because Ryan Tannehill, it's Tannehill versus Willis. Will Levis has a high ankle sprain. He might not even play, John. I'm not sure if you have an update on that, but I mean, it just makes me – and, DeAndre Hopkins, there's certain guys in the league that I will say they have been categorized as attitude red flag guys, right? Like Michael Thomas, we know that when they're eliminated, he might get in his feelings a little bit. DeAndre Hopkins playing on an eliminated team, could have attitude problems. I've seen Mike Wallace. Remember Mike Wallace? He walked off in the middle of a game, dude. Like some of these guys, they are willing to sit back and say, you know what? Why am I doing this? So I don't know. I do worry about DeAndre Hopkins to that degree in a situation like this. So I'm trying to avoid all the Titans if I can.
Yeah, I'm with you there. All right, let's move on down here. Commanders versus the Jets, a terrible game to watch. Jets are somehow giving 3 in this matchup at the 37.5 game total. What do you like in this spot? Again, the Jets have a really good pass defense, and they're at home. Commanders give up more sacks than everybody. I mean, what are we doing here?
If you got to start a player, I think it's got to be Curtis Samuel because he's the gadgety underneath, gets a carry every once in a while type guy. And that's how teams have had success against this defense. It's doing the play action and gadgety stuff over the middle. Like that's how Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill got away with it. That's how Keenan Allen had 80 yards. It's like you got to just try and figure out where Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, and Michael Carter are going to be in this zone. And they do play zone 70% of the time. And you have to scheme up some little trickery to get guys into those spaces. And I think I'm definitely not going to put John Dotson out there on the outside against these guys to do jump balls. That's not happening. So Curtis Samuel's a guy I trust. You can't trust Logan Thomas. Terry McLaurin, great game last week, but I mean, now they're going to be all over that guy. So I don't know. Curtis Samuel's the one I trust best from that side. And then on the Jets, it's been the same thing. Like if you've had Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson on your team all year and you still can't figure out whether you need to start those guys or not, I don't know what I can tell you because
Breece Hall has been terrible. I actually think Garrett Wilson's a viable play this week, given how bad the Commanders are.
But he always is. And like, how on your team can you not look at who you have and who you have had and not be able to say like, okay, do I have to start this guy or not? Because you never want to start him. Like, there's nobody out there that says yes, Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. He's at least a wide receiver 3, if not a flex play, I think, this season, even on a week-to-week basis. But this is a matchup where, I mean, the Commanders, again, last week, just let Cooper Kupp was uncovered. How do you forget to cover Cooper Kupp? I mean,
nobody else on the screen, dude.
Like, and they do that routinely. The Commanders just lose guys that they shouldn't be losing. DJ Moore had 200 yards against him. He's the only receiver the Bears have. How do you lose that guy? So it feels like Garrett Wilson's going to get lost at some point in this game. It's all about whether or not the Jets quarterback, whomever it may be, because Zach Wilson still in concussion protocol, will be able to hit Garrett Wilson, but he will be wide open at some point this week. And I like him in DFS, and you got to play him at least in seasonal, depending on what your roster looks like. For
sure. He's like, so when I talked earlier about Jackson Smith and Jigba, where I said the full-time guys, and then you put these other guys like right at the top, Curtis Samuel, JSN, I think you still have to put guys like Garrett Wilson and Drake London ahead of those guys just for the upside. Yeah. So it's like they're the bottom of the star tier. They're the bottom of the X receiver tier before you start saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to start part-time players here. So I think Garrett Wilson still fits in there. But that's the way it goes.
Lions giving 3 in Minnesota here. It's a 47 game total. I think this one's going to be pretty good. Second highest game total on the board. You and I talked last week, like Nick Mullins is another quarterback where he has got gameplay experience, got starter experience, has success at the NFL level, and he looked pretty damn good last week at times against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals have a much worse defense than the Lions have, but at least you should have some confidence that I don't think Mullins is going to go over there and completely throw up on himself when he goes and starts, like we've seen some of these guys come into the league. And the fact that he has Jordan Addison, he has Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson just makes it an easier experience for him as well. So I think this is going to be one of the funner games to watch of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fully on board with both teams in this one. I'm definitely starting Jefferson, definitely starting Amon-Ra St. Brown. A lot of these guys are just automatic starts. JJ, ARSB, Sam Laporta, like TJ Hawkinson, you don't really even have to talk about those guys.
No.
And Jordan Addison, for me, he overtook KJ Osborne. Early in the year, KJ Osborne played over him in every single game that Justin Jefferson played. And then this past week, you had 95% of the snaps for JJ, 91% for Addison, and then KJ Osborne was down around 60%. So the changing of the guard is here. Jordan Addison is the guy that I'm going with. It's the rest of the Lions pass catchers that I'm not really in on.
Yeah. For the Vikings, I will say, like, obviously, if you have Ty Chandler in Madison continues to be out, you're gonna start him in your fantasy leagues. it's just not the best spot to do so. The Lions do have a good run defense, but Chandler is involved in the passing offense, so maybe there's some upside for him there. So I wouldn't just expect a repeat of what he got last week because we know how bad the Bengals defense is. This is a much different spot, but obviously you're still starting him in your leagues this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fully in on that. I was looking. Sorry, I'm distracted. I was looking at my rankings. I'll have to look at them afterwards. But I think the problem that Brunch ran into in the chat is that there seems to be a glitch going on with my rankings. So I'll get that.
Do we have the
out.
wrong names selected again?
No, I'll get it fixed in here. But it's showing like the completely wrong week. It seems. So
okay, well we'll get that fixed for everybody there.
It has my rankings are actually. If you want to see my rankings, Brunch, go look under Howard Bender's name because my rankings are showing up under Bender.
Oh, strange.
And that's where I have Aaron Jones ranked at like RB13. That's why I looked at the rankings there to myself. I was like, wait a second, I don't have him at 23. I have him much higher than that. Right. So my rankings are rankings are under Bender. Yeah, and I gotta hit them up and figure that out.
We'll get those fixed then. Jacksonville versus Buccaneers, the 4 p.m. game. Buccaneers are giving 1. We don't know Trevor Lawrence's status. I think that obviously if he gets ruled out, that spread will move drastically in the Tampa Bay favor. If it is CJ Beathard, do you have any feelings on ETN, Ridley, Ingram, or Parker Washington, who's a pretty cheap DFS dart this week?
Yeah, then that's where I'd leave him because he really didn't play a full snap share, and they're not going to move him into the Zay Jones role. They're going to move Tim Jones into that role. That's what they've been doing. Tim Jones is a much bigger player. Parker Washington still is just going to be like a part-time slot guy. So I don't love Parker Washington in that case. I know people like to get cute with stuff like that. Now is not the time. I think you can still start Ridley. You can start Ingram, regardless of who the quarterback is, especially if Zay Jones is out. But Parker Washington, in my real leagues, I'm not going to do it. In DFS, I might. And Tim Jones, don't go there. Jamal Agnew, don't.
I said, what about Jamal Agnew? He had some moments last season for us.
He had a big catch last week. Last week was the week to start him. You don't start him the week after the big random catch. He only ran like 10 routes on the day, if that. Here, I'll pull it up just to be sure, but we're talking Jamal Agnew played 10 snaps and ran 8 routes out of a possible 49. So that's just not enough.
Who got the Zay Jones? Who's getting the Zay Jones snaps?
Tim Jones.
Okay. We'll check that out then and go on forward. Obviously, if Beathard's in, you got to downgrade those guys probably a little bit anyways. It is a good matchup against Tampa Bay, though. So,
for sure.
Given how bad their defense and some of the injuries they've had. On the other side of this game, we had the Baker Mayfield game, threw 4 touchdowns last week. Rachaad White's an interesting spot, right? So Rachaad White, tough run defense against Jacksonville. However, as we've said all season long, no team allows more receptions to the running back position than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Rachaad White has caught 50 of the 55 targets that he's had this season. So I still think it's a full systems go for Rachaad White this week.
Yeah, I think in full PPR, you can rank him where you usually rank him because he's going to catch 6-7 passes. They were letting up 7 passes a week to the running back, and he's the only running back pretty much that does anything on the team.
Yep.
Right. Like to put in perspective, Alvin Kamara got like 14 targets against this team. Even Joe Mixon, go back and watch the Joe Mixon game. Joe Mixon had like 7 catches. Like that's just the way it goes with this team. So I have no problem starting Rachaad White everywhere I have him. And I'm going to start Mike Evans everywhere I have him. And I'm going to start Chris Godwin. And Cade Otton is just like to forget about him because, he plays a big snap share, but he's the third fiddle. And there were a few games where they leaned on him a little bit, but I'm starting to think that was mostly because at the time Godwin was dealing with a little bit of a neck issue. Then he had a knee issue. Godwin clearly, based on last week, is good to go. So Cade Otton to me off the table to some degree.
Yep, I'm in agreement with you there as well. I mean, even last week, Baltimore, not a team that throws to the running back that often. Keaton Mitchell already had 2 catches on 2 targets before he unfortunately suffered that knee injury. So they were even throwing. Even Baltimore was throwing to their running backs in the spot against Jacksonville there. Featured game of the week is Cowboys versus Dolphins. The Dolphins are giving 1.5 at home. It's a 51 game total. But what do we think here? Obviously, the Dolphins have played really well at home. Dallas is coming off some tough losses. Do you think they right the ship? Can they go at this Dolphins defense? How do you think this one plays out?
Yeah, I mean, clearly Vegas is chalking up last week versus the Bills as a fluke, as a weather issue, as game script, whatever it was, because 51 points and 1.5 point over under, they're thinking shootout here. Like, I know we've been tricked by that before just last week, but I can see the Cowboys having a big bounce back game here. So, I mean, you're starting CeeDee Lamb everywhere. Jake Ferguson, very safe start against the Dolphins. And then on the Dolphins side, obviously you're not starting Durham Smythe. You're starting Raheem Mostert everywhere. You're probably starting Achane, but Mostert's got a nose for the end zone, so he's going to keep getting those touches. And then, you're starting Waddle, and if Tyreek plays, you start Tyreek. That's that.
Tyreek should be good to go. He played last week, obviously, and then they said like they expect him to play. So at this point, he's just going for the record. I think.
I think he wants it bad. So.
There. Waddle's been a great spot. Obviously, you can play Pollard against Miami here as well. Cardinals, Bears. Bears are giving 4.5. It's a 44.5 game total here. You had some up and down performances out of Justin Fields in recent weeks, but Arizona again is a get right game for most teams.
I like both Fields and Kyler Murray in this game. This game has the potential to be really fun to watch. Like if you can, there's 3 games on at 4:00. If you can only have 2 on the if you have 2 TVs, I'm going Cowboys Dolphins on 1, Cardinals Bears on the other, because I think this game could be fun with a lot of scrambling around and potential big plays coming from that, because the defenses are bad, the offenses are capable of big plays. That's the thing, right? So I think Trey McBride's going to be just fine. Cole Kmet, start him where you have to. He's been okay, but the problem is he's blocked on 14.5% of his pass plays this year, which isn't good. And the real scary thing is that it's not consistent. If it was 14.5 and he was blocking on 3 or 4 pass plays every game, then I'd say, okay, you know what? Not that big a deal. The problem is some games he blocks on 0 and some games he blocks on 8. The Raiders game, he blocked on 8 and he didn't catch a single pass. That's the scary part for Cole Kmet. But, some people just don't have a better option. So you can start him where you have to. As far as Cardinals pass catchers, if Marquise Brown is out, the player I like is Michael Wilson. Like Marquise Brown left with the heel issue last week. He didn't practice all week with the heel issue. Then he played and left the game. So can't imagine he plays this week. Michael Wilson led the team with 65 snaps. I know he didn't catch any of his 3 targets, but we saw him have a 2-touchdown game earlier this year against the 49ers. One more game of practice under his belt. That's the guy I'm betting on.
That's fine. I don't mind that spot for him. Again, just a big upside for him there. The Bears defense has gotten a little bit better.
Right.
And I know obviously they gave up the big plays and they lost that game last week, but for a while there, they were holding down Flacco. They were causing turnovers. They could be on the up.
They held Sam Laporta to 2 bad games. Like I think Trey McBride is used a little differently than Laporta, but Eddie Jackson can cause some trouble there. So I don't know. I'm still starting Trey McBride. You can't go away from him right now, but I would love if McBride was playing like the Bengals this week,
right?
Or
exactly.
the Broncos or something,
Speaking of the Broncos, Sunday Night Football matchup, Patriots are in Denver for this one. Broncos are giving just 6.5, which feels low, but their offense kind of sucks. So 34.5 game total. We know the Patriots defense is still good. Yes, they gave up points to the Kansas City Chiefs, but I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes. They still managed to sack Patrick Mahomes and get a couple of turnovers off of him here. The Broncos offense on the other side really hasn't been too impressive. Yeah, if Courtland Sutton keeps finding the end zone, but this could be a game where, again, we go under. I guess my question to you is, for the Patriots offense, is Bailey Zappi good enough for fantasy where, if Hunter Henry's active in this game, he's a viable play? DeMario Douglas, like, how are you approaching the New England offense now with Bailey Zappi as the quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the number one thing is Henry's health because he left the last game. But, I mean, not only has Henry obviously scored 2 touchdowns the week before, and then he scored 1 this past week and had another one that got called back on a penalty. So he almost scored 4 times over the last 2 weeks. But his
usage back on a hold, so he had the touchdown. There's just a hold on the offense there.
His usage has gotten better in general. So like he's running more routes. He's run 27 routes each of the last 2 games, which isn't anything to write home about for some players, but this guy in some of these games early on only ran like 10 routes. So Hunter Henry's moving up for me. I just have to see that he's fully healthy and a full go.
If he's out, does Mike Gesicki move up the rankings for you then?
No, because Farrell Brown is playing well ahead of him, and Farrell Brown's not going to it's not like you're going to take Gesicki and put him into Hunter Henry's role. The guys that move up for me are DeMario Douglas and like Devontae Parker probably. Okay. The thing is, it's like Hunter Henry, if he's not 100% fully healthy, I'm not going there because he's already kind of risky. I'm not going to compound my risk by starting a banged up guy that is also already kind of pretty touchdown dependent.
Sure. What about the Denver side of things?
Yeah, it kind of stinks for Javonte Williams that his usage has been fine, but the Patriots are quietly number 1 in DVOA against the run. So, and he hasn't had more than 3 receptions in a while, like in 5-6 weeks. He only has 2 games this year with 4 receptions, I'm pretty sure. Like, it's not like they're just going to throw it to him against this defense. So I don't know. I'm really worried about Javonte. You're starting Cortland Sutton. Jerry Jeudy's not even a full-time player anymore, to be honest. Like, he didn't this past week. If you look at the usage numbers, Cortland Sutton ran like every route, right? Like, he ran 35 of 36 routes. Jerry Jeudy only ran 24. And Lil Jordan Humphrey ran 21. So Jerry Jeudy, a guy we already didn't like, and now I definitely not interested.
Yep, agreed. Let's go on over to these Monday Night Football games. Got a couple minutes left here. Long fantasy football still on schedule here today. Guys, 2:00, you'll have Coop and Britt Flynn taking you through there. So any questions we haven't gotten to today, come back and make sure you tune into Alarm Fantasy Football. Raiders, Chiefs. Chiefs are given 10. What we saw out of the Raiders offense last week, that's more of an indictment on the Chargers just getting rid of Staley, right? Like, we're not expecting a big offensive output here, are we?
Nah, dude. And I'll tell you what, like the Kansas City Chiefs, in every single game that Mahomes has been with the Chiefs, they've scored at least 25 points and they average like 35. So I think this is going to be a get right game for Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce probably going to finish the season as a tight end 1 because he's got the Raiders this week. Next week, he gets the Bengals, which is a bottom 2 team. And then I know week 18, we don't count for fantasy, but he gets the Chargers. He played the Chargers earlier this year, and he had, 12 catches for 179 yards and a touchdown. Like, Travis Kelce's, again, he's still Travis Kelce. So I'm starting him. Everywhere I have him, I'm starting him this week. I'm starting him next week. If I have Trey McBride and Hawkinson or Laporta, then the question is whether I start those guys at the flex, not whether I start them over Travis Kelce. If anything, I guess because Kelce plays on Christmas, you can put the other guys in tight end, but you're putting Kelce in the lineup in the flex. You start Travis Kelce.
Yeah, 100% here. Anything else you want to talk about? Running back situation? Any interest?
Oh, in these games?
Yeah.
Okay. Zamir White if Josh Jacobs is out. Otherwise, you start Jacobs. But I'm a little worried about Kansas City. You start Pacheco if he's a full go, but
that's my thing, right? If Pacheco's active, you kind of have to put him in your lineup, but and void the other 2. But you don't really know just how quickly they'll throw Pacheco back into the mix because they haven't really given, it feels like, a lot of information on what he had surgery on there. Just a shoulder procedure. It's like,
I need a guarantee on Saturday that he's going to play because you're going to have decisions to make on Saturday, decisions to make on Sunday. You might have to just start guys over him if you don't know.
Yep, agreed. Giants, Eagles. Eagles giving 11.5. Obviously, they've been on a little bit of a skid here lately, but maybe the Giants coming to town changed that for him. Tommy Cutlin's fired his agent, Coop. I don't know if you saw that.
We did.
So they'll so a little change there for Tommy DeVito. That offense obviously did not look very good last week. I don't think we like much of the Giants side in this matchup, right?
No. Darren Waller, if he's full go, if you have to, I don't mind Waller there, but yeah, Saquon's gonna be a tough start. I ranked Zeke Elliott over Saquon. I ranked a few guys over Saquon.
Against the Broncos, it's a good matchup for Zeke here. Zeke a little critical of the Patriots offense last week. We'll see if that changes. Tune Eagles bounce back spot. I think again, they just look to me like out of sync. At times they looked a little slow. It's a big point spread for a divisional matchup and a 42.5 total, but. I'm not really sure what to think of Philadelphia right now.
No, yeah, this is going to be a good thing. Is it doesn't even matter. Like we thought, like, oh, you know what, they're falling apart, blah blah. But they face the Giants, then the Cardinals, then the Giants. So they're going to just walk into the playoffs with the at least winning the division. So
yeah, we'll go Monday Night Football here. I've got a minute left, Coop. So quick thoughts: Baltimore 49ers.
Yeah, this is not what we wanted. Championship, like a playoff week, semifinal week, to have Isaiah Likely facing a tough defense in the same game where George Kittle is facing a tough defense. But that's what we got here. We just got to hope this game carries shootout potential so that everybody can eat. But could be dicey.
Could be dicey for sure. All right, everybody, go check out Alarm Fantasy Football, 2:00 today. Coop and Britt Flynn get you guys ready for Week 16 action. We'll be back live Sunday morning as well, live stream there, 9 to 10, and then 11 to 12. Me and Coop taking you in to the inactives. We'll catch you all later.